Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Bloody Jacob here to bring you my weekly strain review. This one's going to be the last one until next year, guys. I'm really happy it got renewed, but it's going to be such a long wait. Um, but of course, this week, my last week until next year, I'll be reviewing the season 1 finale, which was entitled The Master. So yeah, we finally hit the end of the season here, and it was really a pretty solid finale overall. I mean, there are a couple nitpicks I have, but overall I think it was a pretty solid close for season one. Although it didn't really have too much closure, but considering that the main enemy is the Master, you didn't really expect it to all end with him, right? In this episode, anyway. So, but still, it had a great amount of action, and there was a lot of intensity, and I'll get into the specifics of that in a minute. We had a few different things going on in this episode. One thing I did want to mention before I forget though, is there was this little scene of Zach. He was in the bed at the pawn shop, and he was just thinking about he had like a flashback to him and Kelly, which is his mother, Ephraim's ex-wife. Who of course we know what happened to her. And, he just had a flashback of her giving Zach a bike for his birthday, and, her recording it to send to Ephraim because he was at some kind of conference at the time. Excuse me. And, yeah, so, really just, is really building up to that scene we know is coming when, we finally see her in that full vampire form along with the, characters of Ephraim and Zach. So we'll get to more of that eventually in this review. And one of the other main things going on is with Eldridge Palmer. And as we've seen last week, the Master, or in the last episode or two, the Master had finally granted him his wish, supposedly, and, brought him back to health. But you see, Eldridge here, he thought that the Master was going to bring him back to health as well as make him immortal, similar to what he did with Icorst. But I finally learned how to pronounce that name right. I've been saying Ecorst, but it's Icorst apparently, based on, the character's pronunciations. So, anyway, Eldridge had thought, the Master would grant him immortality and power similar to what he did with Icorst. But that didn't turn out to be the case, despite his maniacal laugh in the rain in the last scene we seen him. Turned out that the Master just granted him health for a temporary amount of time, which is even unsure how long that is. So, as Icorst informed Eldridge, that he doesn't know, and this is a way that you keep Eldridge would keep building himself up to maybe eventually get increased power and positioning within the Master's ranks. So yeah, he was a little pissed off about that. You can just really see the arrogance in Eldridge, and his feeling of self-entitlement, even with the likes of the Master and Icorst and all them. So we got a lot more out of him in this episode. I think his assistant, the black guy, Fitzwilliam, he had also helped Fett and Dutch escape a few episodes ago when they confronted Eldridge in his building. And in this episode, Fitzwilliam had finally had enough, and he said he couldn't come with him, and he decided to abandon him, and he just walked out. So yeah, I'm not remembering like all the lines here, but so I'm not really sure where Fitzwilliam's gonna end up now. Obviously people are thinking, oh, he's gonna come across our main group eventually, which chances are it's kind of likely, or maybe Gus or something like that, but we'll see. But it's kind of cool, to see bad guys sort of turning into good guys in a way. but I don't care too much about that yet, but it's still interesting and potentially good for future moments. Okay. And more of that. Apparently, Goodweather's broadcast, Ephraim's broadcast from the last episode that he made, with the emergency test, it actually got a hold of quite a few people's attention, including the, what do you call them, the health officials. Ephraim's boss from the CDC that we haven't seen in quite a few episodes, as well as another woman who controls that. I forget her name, I apologize. But it turns out that the woman is actually planning to quarantine the city and, actually basically do what Ephraim advised, or what, she felt was, completely necessary after what she heard Ephraim say about what was going on. Excuse the voice crack. So, really, Ephraim's plan worked, just about. Like the boss tried to talk her out of it, but she wanted, she basically, hold on. Eldridge shows up along with I-Course, and, he tries to convince her not to go through with that plan. And, she finally says, that my duty is to the American people, I'm sorry. And, basically Eldridge takes her out on the balcony to, have a private conversation with her, and you see him in the background. The Ephraim CDC boss and I-Course have a very awkward conversation. Boss notices I-Course has a German accent. They talk a little bit about that. And then in the background you see Eldridge and the woman hugging, and then he just picks her up and drops her over the balcony. It's pretty pretty brutal. Well, I don't say brutal, well it is, but I don't know. Messing with my bangs here. But so Eldridge really has a sense of self-entitlement. He just feels like he has to do all this shit just to get that immortality, which he probably does, keep on doing all this. And now Eldridge is back at full health, at least for the foreseeable future. We'll probably see him taking over more of the city from the human side of things and gaining more power and influence, and also aiding I-Course, the Master, and the rest of them with his control and power. So it's going to be amplified now with that. And they basically get the CDC boss to comply to, not quarantining the city. So there goes that. And, there was that part of it. And something else I want to definitely have to mention. We've seen more of Gus and the Vampire Commando SWAT team. I heard what the main hooded figure's name is from the comic books or the novels, but again, they haven't said it on the show yet, so I'm just gonna call them the SWAT vampires, this vampire SWAT team, I guess. They're not a SWAT team, but they haven't said his name on the show yet, so I'm not gonna call them anything yet. But any specific name yet. But he had shown up, and him and his group had just basically kidnapped Gus last week, and Gus wakes up, he's tied to a chair on like a completely dark area. He has no idea where he is. And we see more of the main hooded figure, the SWAT guy, half vampire, half whatever, come up to him with his hood off, and we got to see more of his face and design and stuff, which was really, really cool. He actually looks a little bit more badass than the Master. A little bit scarier, actually. But, yeah, I find this guy really interesting, the main hooded figure with the vampire SWAT team. And we actually get a pretty big scene, and he, Gus tries to fight him a few times and, punch at him and stuff, and, the vampire, half vampire, just completely outmaneuvers him, and, just knocks him on the ground each time, so it's kind of funny. Because we've seen Gus as this, very capable, brutal fighter, and then he just gets out completely owned like this. But I like Gus, but it's still kind of funny. And the hooded figure basically leads him. Well, he's not always hooded, so what should I call him? The Vamp SWAT team leader. leads them down. They're in this he explains how they're in deep underground at somewhere in the city, and he leads him into this spotlight in a room, and it's huge, and you see all these vampires, except they're not vampires, they're the larger ancient vampires. Similar in appearance to the Master, except they all look a little bit older than him even. And the vamp SWAT leader basically explains to Gus that the Master apparently has broken some kind of truce. I'm not sure if that's with humans or just with the other ancients, or if he is even an ancient. I'm not sure. Probably is, but he basically realize that there's a whole bigger side to all this going on, and the vamp SWAT leader and his team are basically aiding these ancients and bringing the Master down, or at least restoring control or restoring the truce. I'm not sure. We'll find out more about that next season, I'm sure. And it was really interesting, and my camera's going all over the place. Sorry about that. And so it's going to be really, really, a huge part of the story going forward, no question. So, yeah, and I find, the vamp SWAT leader incredibly interesting. I've heard some things about what he is, but I'm not going to say it here. It's because we haven't seen it for sure on the show yet. But, so it's going to be pretty cool. So there's that. And I'm just trying to see if I forgot about anything else before I get to the main part. Well, we had seen Ephraim and Fett. They had tried locating the Master again, doing some recon is the word for it, and they had actually thought to go to the Gabriel, the rock star, with the long straight black hair, who we seen turning earlier in the season. They went back to his place, because they figured out the reasoning for that and stuff, and they basically eventually discovered that and as Abraham explained, they're going to be vampires that are protecting the Master during the day. That that's why they're always hoarded around an area where the Master is located. So they discovered that the Master, potentially the Master, and the vampires are hiding out in Gabriel's old studio or stage or apartment or whatever it is, loft. I'm not sure. But and they eventually lead the rest of the group back there, and Ephraim's questioning whether or not to bring Zach along, because Kelly, they basically know she's either dead or turned as a vampire, and she's gonna inevitably keep on trying to track Zach down, so it might not be the best idea to leave him alone while she's looking for him. So they bring Zach along, and Satraki and Abraham gives him a blade and all that from his arsenal. And he says, sons have hunted with their fathers since the beginning of sons have hunted with their fathers since the beginning of time, and this is no different. But obviously it is a little bit different given the circumstances, but it was pretty cool. And so Ephraim, Abraham, Zach, Dutch, Nora, and Fett, all went back to Gabriel's area, Gabriel's building, and they really just started taking out vampires left and right in the studio. And it was really cool because we got to see each character involved in action. Ephraim was shooting the silver gun, nailing all these vampires in the head. Satraki and Abraham was just just walking up to each vampire he could get and just taking their heads off with his sword, of course. And Fett would brutally beat him in with his or cut him down with his machete, silver machete or whatever it is. And Nora actually had another sword. And Gabriel, the actual vampire, had showed up too, and made sense for him and Nora to have a little scuffle because of he's the particular vampire that killed her mother last week. One of the cool shots is when Gabriel shot out his tongue at Nora, and she swiped it or cut it with a sword. So that was really cool. But eventually, I-Course comes out, and, well, wait, hold on. Ephraim and, oh yeah, and even Dutch is getting in some good shots, killing a few vampires, and she recognizes and a certain artist she knew that she may have had relations with, I'm not sure. But still cool to see her getting involved in all of it. Again, I like her and Fett's chemistry and stuff like that, but Ephraim and Abraham kept going upstairs as the rest of them held off the regular vampires so they could, try to find the master. Yeah, it's still a little bit questionable whether both of them could take the master on their own, I'm not sure. But, just the two of them. But, it's whatever. And once Ephraim and Abraham had gone upstairs, I-Course came out, and him and Fett actually got into a bit of a fight. Obviously, I-Course wasn't too affected by Fett because of his, power and durability and stuff like that. But Fett got on his back, and he was knocked down a few times by I-Course, and Dutch actually shot I-Course a few times with the silver bullets and stuff. And yeah, if I was worried about any character in this finale, it was probably Dutch, because the way that I-Course kept on looking at her, I thought he was just gonna shoot it out and then boom, or something like that. But didn't happen. I'm glad Dutch is still alive. So that was pretty cool to see, a fight sequence like that. And of course, Abraham and F had actually found the master, further upstairs, and F actually had the great idea. He started knocking out windows, letting all the sun come in and different things like that as Zach's on his side and stuff. As Abraham's, talking down the master and things like that. And the master, gets glanced by a few of the sun rays coming in, and, you can tell it does. He feels it. He feels pain from being in the sun. And, Abraham actually gets hit by the master once, but he gets back up pretty quickly somehow, I guess. But, we see Abraham actually cuts him, once around, the shoulder or arm area, before he gets knocked to the side. And, Ephraim actually gets a hit on him, and the master falls through the window and right onto a rooftop right next door, and he's just laying out in the sun. He's burning up all over the place. You can feel the heat coming off of him, but they're waiting for him to just perish or burn to ash, I guess. But hold on. When Abraham starts saying, "In the name of all that is holy," or "for the name of all that is holy," and he's about to raise his sword and try and decapitate the master, I guess, but the master actually, master actually sprints off, and he actually starts climbing down the roof and the side of the building, and he gets away. So that's it. But while the master was, scurrying down the side of the building, we could see, I guess his spine was actually exposed, which is pretty cool. So, and Abraham and the rest of the group are, hold on a second. Abraham and the rest of the group are dreading the fact that the master survived being in the sun, but they were acting like the sun didn't affect him at all. I mean, if he was kept in the sun for a little while longer, I'm sure he probably would have died, because obviously we've seen his spine exposed because of it, and obviously his reaction, he was taking damage, but it's probably just not as instant as they were hoping for. So they were surprised that he can survive being in the sunlight at all, let alone for a few minutes. So Master's more powerful than even Abraham realized, apparently. And it's pretty much where the episode ends. We didn't really think the main thread in the Master would end after season 1, unless of course he did something weird like possessing another body or something. I'm not sure how that would work, but I heard something about that. But it didn't happen. The Master just got away. So I'm not really too disappointed by that. I didn't expect him to end by the end of the season. So it's probably going to be a while before we actually see the Master destroyed, most likely by the end of the series, I presume, but we'll see. But, and we end with a pretty epic, narrating by Abraham. I can't remember the exact quotes, but probably can't find it. But yeah, it was pretty cool, and we see Abraham and the rest of the group, you know, Ephraim and all that. Oh wait, hold on, there was one more thing I wanted to talk about. While they were driving after that, Zach acted like he needed his inhaler, and so, you know, the place he left it at was, you know, their house, you know, Kelly's house, you know, Ephraim's ex-wife, Zach's mother, and once Ephraim goes in there with him, you know, he feels like if she shows up, you know, he should probably do it himself instead of bringing in and Abraham too or something. And so Ephraim goes in their old house with Zach, and, you know, it turns out that it was just a ploy by Zach so they could get the old family photo album. And some people were complaining about that. Oh, how stupid are you to do that? That was a really dumb writing thing right there. Dumb that Ephraim went in by himself. But really, you just gotta understand the characters here. If you're saying all that, you don't really get the characters. I'm sorry. But, we got like a sort of like a touching, tragic scene of, you know, Zach and Ephraim looking through the photo album, you know, at the family pictures, and Ephraim's sort of warmed by the fact that Kelly still kept the pictures of him and Zach and her together even after what happened between them, you know, after they divorced and stuff. But then they see like a shadow walk past the window, and sure enough, it's Kelly fully transformed as a vampire. And, you know, Zach's just freaking out, and, you know, he's completely, you know, completely shattered, basically, seeing his mother like that. And, of course, Ephraim, you know, he's tearing up, and he's kind of devastated, too, of course, because, as you know, he still loves his wife. You know, he said that, his ex-wife, he said that before. And, you know, and he shoots once, you know, and the glass comes down. She starts stepping inside the house a little bit, and, you know, hear actually saying Zach, and, you know, Zach tries to run over to her, but, you know, Ephraim pulls him back, saying it's not her anymore, and he tries to shoot her, but he can't really right away. He's really breaking down too. Great acting from Corey Stoll, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but great acting on the actor for Ephraim. You know, just even pointing the gun is really great acting. But, you know, she eventually walks out and leaves. So I'm not sure if the master is controlling her fully in that, or if she actually has like more abilities to actually speak like that. I'm not sure. Either way, you know, Abraham explains that the master will use, you know, his wife against him as much as he can, and she'll follow them to the ends of the earth if necessary until she kills them. So yeah, so we'll probably see her show up again in that second season, I'm sure. So it's gonna be really emotional, and I'm sure Ephraim will eventually put her down at some point and kill her, but that's gonna be good. And, you know, like I said, it ends with all of them driving off in the van or the truck, and, you know, that you see the far shot of the city. You know, there's flames, and there's, you know, ships, and there's sirens and stuff. So apparently, you know, it's, you know, vampires are going around the city, and it's a lot more chaotic now. So yeah, the apocalypse is starting to progress a little bit more. So yeah, that's the season 1 finale of The Strain. I don't think I really missed anything. The Master, and yeah, pretty solid finale. The only thing I nitpick about it was that some of the fighting in the main scene seemed a little bit slow and a little bit sluggish, but I don't really think it was as bad as some biased reviews online were saying. I think it was still pretty exciting, pretty cool to see all that happen. So yeah, it's The Strain, great first season, incredible first season, one of my favorite shows. I actually enjoyed season 1 of The Strain more than I did season 4 of The Walking Dead. You know, with The Walking Dead, season 1 was great, season 2 was great, season 3 was pretty good at least. Season 4 is a little bit lacking in some areas despite the Governor and Too Far Gone episodes. But overall, I think I enjoyed season 1 of The Strain more than season 4 of The Walking Dead. So, yeah, The Strain is definitely a great show. It's a shame we'll have to wait till next year to see more of it, but at least it got renewed for season 2, and it's coming for sure, guys. So yeah, I'll definitely be reviewing it next year when it comes back on for season 2. And I'll catch you guys next time with more of my Bully Let's Play playthrough videos, and you'll see me review the season 5 premiere of The Walking Dead next Monday. So I'll catch you guys then, and peace.